Hello and welcome everyone to Brand Licensing and Merchandising Summit Asia, organized by licenseindia.com. Today's discussion will revolve around how Brand Licensing and Merchandising Summit will capture the new rules of brand licensing and how globally it will bring new opportunities for your brands, retailers and manufacturers. I am Isha Thakkar, Project Head from License India. This webinar will be presented by Bradford, our magazine partner, Retailer and Licensing Magazine, our media partner, Total Licensing and Licensing Corner, association partner, the Textile Association of India. Let me start by laying out few ground rules for the attendees. This webinar will go around for 4.5 hours. Every session will be followed by a Q&A session. If you have any questions during the course of the discussion, you can post them to the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. Mention in your question if it is directed to any specific panelist. We will take up the questions post the session. Please participate in poll during the webinar. We would also like to request the attendees to keep the question within the scope of discussion here today and not pitch their businesses. Let me now welcome Mr. Gaurav Marya, MD Bradford India and Chairman Franchise India Group for the inaugural session. He will talk about opportunities during and post-COVID in brand licensing and emergence of India as top destination. This session will be for around 30 minutes. Please post your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Isha. Good afternoon, everyone. Friends at the licensing industry. On behalf of License India and Bradford, I welcome you all for this e-edition of Brand Licensing and Merchandising Summit. You know, we have been doing a lot of physical events all these years. The first licensing show we did, I remember, was in 2004, way back, when we saw this industry as an opportunity to come to India. And since then, we were doing this show when earlier it was part of the integrated show of a franchising show where we all had a licensing pavilion. And for last 3 years, we took the show out and made a separate licensing show. And also we used to be doing a lot of other conferences because we feel that the knowledge gap in Indian licensing is very big, and we need to continue to fill that gap and continue to bring best practices, continue to guide the entire ecosystem on how best practices of licensing works. So this time, because we all locked in and we are having a lot of anxiety, what would happen to the industry, what kind of challenges we all going to face, what is happening in the world, because licensing is a connected world. You know, it is about taking IPs from one market to another market, and similarly, merchandising is also a very connected formula, which means that it works on a connected supply chain and so on and so forth. So when all this is stopped and everything is held, you know, we have absolutely disturbed connectivity, travel, any kind of supply chain being disturbed and so on and so forth. What is happening to the licensing? So that's why we thought at License India, this would be the perfect time that we all can organize this summit. And thank you very much for all the panelists. We have great panelists in the 4.5 hours, as Isha said, which would share their ideas, what would happening to their businesses, what is their plan B, plan C, plan D, what is they are doing in changing the way they used to do business, how they see that this business would change over the time. I call it, when this all lockdown happened, probably all over the world, it was taken by surprise. So nobody expected that we will just get into a lockdown. And especially for a lot of businesses which were thriving all over, so they just came to a halt. So we went into what I call the anxiety and a hold on period. And this hold on period, most of the times we wait and watch, and we don't do much in that stage. We just keep looking at numbers of cases, viral cases are growing or things like that happening. And suddenly after 60, 70, 80 days, and in some parts of the world, but now about 100 days, people have started realizing that you have to live with this situation, and the commerce and the businesses would have to survive given the circumstances we are all in. So similarly for licensing industry also, we all have to think through that is this moment when we are what I call safely opening up, the businesses, or getting back to a little bit of our commerce. How do we really see this all shaping up? So I divide this piece into 3 different stages, and the first stage which would hit us for the next quarter is sustainability. And I feel that a lot of licensors, licensees, the agencies, the entire ecosystem, the suppliers, they would all have to see what is the immediate sustainability for them and how that sustainability would come, how they would manage their cash flows. I see a lot of disturbance, especially for bigger firms in this case, because smaller firms are quite nimble, they would be able to find, but the bigger firms would have a lot of challenges. So what is this sustainability idea? How do we, and this is what I think leaders from the industry will talk about today. Then we will also talk about how do we maintain our I think. So when we get from a sustainability, we'll have to do a lot of maintenance work, which means that how do we maintain relationships? And I think licensing, the biggest problem is that you all work on relationships. We all work on contracts, and these contracts can go south, and I can tell you already this has started happening. We're seeing people saying that, look, we have force majeure and we don't want to honor contracts, and a lot of that would change. And there are some honest issues also. Look at retailers who have stores being shut. They have merchandise lying from the last season which is not sold. They would have no ability to even take their contracts ahead. So what is going to happen to this whole thing? How this older licensees relationships, the current contracts which are signed, would they be honored for the years to come? Would the extensions would be given? How is going to impact the incomes and so on and so forth? And a lot of times you get unwanted legal issues which you have to address. So this is going to be even more tougher, which I see is from the next 3 months, which is sustainability, when you start getting into what I call the maintenance period. And then you would get to about another 6 to 8 months by the time we start thinking through that what is going to happen. And then we will certainly be hit by our growth plans and how do we continue to develop the business in that. So some would do this same phase, as I said, they would go to the first sustainability idea, then we go to a little bit of maintaining their relationships, and then they would go on developing their business. Some would be clever. Some companies would be clever. They would do all three simultaneously. And that's something which is difficult, but that's something which I always recommend. It's all going to be, I call this, there is an equation which we used, and when the lockdown happened, I sent this message to all my teams. I say, this is an equation called E plus R is equal to O, which means that the events would happen in your life, and some events are out of your control. And this is one of the events which is out of your control. So this is an event which is happening. We cannot do much about it, right? And second is how you respond to event, which is absolutely in your control, how you respond to that. And that would actually be the O, which is the outcome. So the events plus responses we give them would give them the outcome of how we go in the market. And as a licensing industry, we need to really also see how do we respond to this situation which is arising on us. But overall, I particularly feel, it would be shame if India didn't use this as an opportunity for maximizing our industry and licensing in India, particularly, because I feel that this has certainly made one big opportunity for all of us. The whole equation of China as the key manufacturer for licensing would change. And I feel that opportunity, how we respond, again, I'm using this word with consciousness because we have missed on a lot of opportunities which came to us, and because our response was not that great. And how we respond, how we actively respond, go out and create that kind of capabilities and demonstrate that capability, demonstrate that transparency, bring some kind of better guidelines for royalty protection, transfer, legal issues, a lot of other things which create comfort. I think we can take a pie of that opportunity, a pie of that merchandising opportunity which can come to India. So India can get a benefit out of this. And I will also talk about a lot of other things which are positively happening. So obviously, if you heard this investment of Facebook in Reliance, what is this investment all about? Go a little deeper into this. This is all about they investing into the next digital commerce which is going to happen to India. So this is, end of the day, it's not investment, it's a strategic investment. And if it is a strategic investment, it has to have a bigger play for a Facebook or WhatsApp integrated. is looking at a commerce, and where is commerce going to come from? From the consumption which is based in India. So consumption story in India is very, very large. And well, I think we have really focused on our Indian consumption story. So if we are able to give greater responses and address that story right, and all the manufacturers, exporters, people who have always looked out, if they start looking inward and start looking at opportunity of servicing this country, I think there is a greater opportunity which is for all of us. But certainly a lot of other changes would need to be done, and we say, especially we work very closely with the retail environment, both at our group level, and I see a lot of changes would come in the retail environment, and retail environment would change in all three P's I call. One, product changes, a lot of product would change, and significantly new products would be created. Some would be innovations. I mean, innovation like we are all seeing companies changing quickly. I mean, I was talking to one of our fashion export houses, and they've started making this special uniforms for airlines, for which are personal protection integrated in that. So they have quickly shifted what they want to do on an immediate form. I mean, this is not going to be a long-term strategy for them, but on an immediate front, they are looking for bringing a lot of product changes. And I think every company should think through and quickly turn around and see how they can build capabilities, change capabilities, bring some product changes to address the current demand cycle, and then continue to change as the demand cycle either get regularized or permanently change. Second is processes. Our processes are very weak in India. I think one of the areas which we have always been let down in licensing, I use this every time because we have very weak processes. Our go-to-market, our capabilities to reach out has been extremely slow. How we are able to turn around faster, how our reach is faster, our go-to-market is faster, that would be done, because I will talk about in a later part how I see the consumption changing. So if that is going to change, we need to cope up with our processes so that we are able to turn around faster. We have very slow turnaround cycles, particularly in India. And third is the priorities the consumer would have, how the consumer is behaving, what is he looking to consume. And one of the areas which I found clearly, which a consumer is looking at, is what I call two things in every brand, and how licensed brands would be able to demonstrate that. That would have to be seen. Two things they look at is warmth and competence. How these brands are going to reflect in their communication, in their story, in their product description, and so on and so forth. If you are able to show these two things, because the current consumer is so conscious about what purchase decision they need to do, they are looking for a strong competence behind the brand. And so people have actually moved from everything to very, very competent brands. They would move back to the Procter & Gamble's and Unilever's and likes of them, because they trust them and they trust these companies. Even in the spaces where day-to-day consumption spaces, if you see around, people have gone back to very, very trusted brands. And that would be a signal for next 2 to 3 years. How you are able to give that value, which is through your warmth, which is your reflection, how you pass your values to the customer, by all the experiences, both not necessarily physical experiences because people are not going out, maybe digitally. And second is how do you demonstrate the competence of your product quality and so on and so forth. So all this is extremely important, and companies we would be able to show that kind of a structure would change. I also feel that in the whole space, there will be a lot of consolidation. That's something which is given. A lot of consolidation, which means that I feel that some companies would aggregate more brands and they would have better abilities to do that. I see independent licensees might not able to sustain. Bigger companies which have multiple programs running and they have a large capability at back would be able to do that. And I think as a licensors, my advice to everybody would be that you encourage that consolidation so that you are able to protect the consumer market share. Otherwise, you have, and I've seen a lot of great programs fail because of the failure of the licensee, and the licensee was not able to sustain, and the product was out of the shelf for some time. And because the product was out of the shelf for some time, the revival of the product or the brand became even more difficult. So if you feel that there is a a potential danger in your product or your potential licensee or your current licensee, then I would say encourage transferring that immediately to more structured, more larger player. And I feel that this would be a time where bigger companies might become even more bigger, and smaller licensee player operators might not be able to survive at this particular time. But there are a lot of good things are happening also, I feel, but in a what I call 6 to 8 months term. And this would be like one of the things which the Prime Minister office has, Prime Minister himself has said is vocal for local, which is a great ideation to give opportunity to Indian manufacturers and try to build products from India, but they will still need brands. So I think licensing is a great marriage to encourage local production and integration through a globally recognized brand. This is a great combination. You also fulfill the need of a consumer which identifies great global brands and also encourage local production. And that's a great marriage. And I think that's a great solution for developing nations because they would always have to encourage local production. And also it gives the consumer also gets the benefit of getting global brand from that. So there's a lot going to happen on that. I think there has to be, and at License India also, we will like to also put a lot of effort to bring awareness, because I think a lot of awareness is missing still. I mean, while we've been doing 15, 16 years of these licensing shows and various conferences, and there are multiple other credible agencies like Bradford also all there. But there's a little done, very, very little done from a penetration viewpoint. I think the much more has to be done collectively with all of us, and including the Association Lima. So another thing which would be very important that shift I see is from a consumer side. Consumer is more than ever asking for a brand and some amount of reassurance coming from the brand side. So, and how those experiences would change and how they're going to consume and digitally, especially, because I think the large amount of consumption I see would be experience, at least from a digital experience viewpoint, and how the companies would quickly be able to adapt that. Now, another area which is great at this moment is that we are consuming content more than ever, and I think so there is a lot of opportunity on that side. I feel that there is a lot of new brands would emerge out of that content, and a lot of IPs would be built. Like I have not done. My wife was saying that there is a game called Ludo King, and this has been downloaded by millions and millions of people. But so these IPs are built in few months, and this is a great opportunity time for a lot of new IPs which would get spread very fast, and people would then like to adapt to those IPs, and these IPs can be extended and so on and so forth. While on the other side, I see even entertainment has got a big hit because new content is not being created. So we are flushing a lot of older content, and because of all this going on. But I think we will find a way. One of our clients is WWE. They have actually changed the format itself. They've taken the audience out of the whole format, and they still started creating a lot of content. So people are becoming innovative. How can they continue to produce a lot of content even in the remote locations? So I think as they found their answers and ability to survive in this situation, we will start seeing a lot of content. But because of the just sheer demand of this content, people asking for more, I think there would be a lot of new IPs. Another opportunity in India, which is not being unlocked, is the whole SME space. The SME space is very, very big in India. And I think SME produces a lot of great product, but they don't get shelf space because they lack a credible brand on that. So I think a lot of programs have to be done to educate, train SMEs for their brand, especially in the categories of FMCG, health and beauty, a lot of those categories, personal care, those kind of categories, and even food space, processed food space, and these kind of categories I feel would grow big time, and the largest consumption for these licensing programs would be SME manufacturers. Direct to consumer, I think most of the people who were adapted to the e-commerce side have already started facing the problem of commoditization, and anything you're selling on commerce, the platforms would continue to put pressure on your pricing and your margins would continue to be eroded. So licensing is a great idea where, especially in anything which you do direct to home or direct to consumer kind of businesses, licensing gives you that position to maintain your price points, hence improve your margins and ability. Another area which I see as an opportunity is that a lot of global players would start seeing India as a large manufacturing and a global licensing hub. I wonder why we have never attempted. I was called by one of the companies out of Bangalore, and they wanted to take a couple of licenses for a mask, and they want to sell it more so in Latin America because they had large operations of exports from there. So I see there is an opportunity for Indian and larger manufacturers, larger companies to take even global initiatives. While Exotica can be a single company which has all global eyewear brands, why can't Indian companies, I mean, Lenskart is a great company. Why can't they attempt to take some of the global licensees and manufacture or produce for the world? And similarly, in a lot of other categories also, why can't we become a larger manufacturing? While we would always be a large consumption hub, but we also can become a large manufacturing hub, which has been always the strength of China. And I have nothing against China, but fundamentally, I feel that as a large country, we need to have both markets going together. We would have to be a large consumption market and also a large manufacturing space. So categories, obviously, which has a no-brainer, anything which you consume digitally, which can be entertainment, video games, digital content on demand, and things like that, would be a very large space. As I said, I'm a big believer that a big dollar would come from FMCG, would come from fast-moving goods. So these are the spaces which would create much more value creation. And I also feel that India, this is my last part of the presentation, and I always, in all my presentation on licensing, has always said that while we put focus on the global brands and we continue to bring these global IPs from India, but why would we not continue to build our own IPs also? So both in all spaces, in the corporate trademark space, in the overall fashion space, and also in the entertainment space, because we have a very large global entertainment space which is available for us. We can genuinely create a lot of good IPs which can travel and can be taken to the world. We have also a very large space for what I call Indian fashion brands. I think we have genuine brands which can be extended, and if we are able to build the right program around it, and also we have a very large heritage or iconic brands in India which have a great unlock value. So we use this word literally called UEC. So fundamentally, this is three things which are required in any brand which is now looking to extend. And this question normally brand owners ask me that what should be there if you want to extend your brand. I call it three things. One, strong unlock value. You should have a very strong unlock value. Second, in India particularly, you need to have a strong emotional connect. If you're not emotionally connected, the brand will never go. And that's happened to a lot of celebrity-linked brands which were extended, lacked any kind of emotional connect. Outside few, which had a very strong, emotional bonding with their consumers. They speak the same language, they live the same life, and so on and so forth. So it has to be. So being human is very close to what Salman is. So fundamentally, while people at that phase of his life didn't believe, but everybody knew him personally, or anybody knew him what he does. So people thought that he was from that perspective had a stronger connect. So there was an emotional connect. And third is the credibility of the product which is delivered to entire thing. Just alone extension of the brand would not make any sense. So if you are able to bring these three values, what we call unlock, and build a strong emotional content and bring credibility, then I think there are a lot of Indian brands which can go in. We run in License India or Bradford, we run a LDP program where we actually work, and 50% of our time is actually now going on developing Indian brands ready for licensing, not only in India space, but outside. I also feel that there is a lot of personalities in India which are great IPs, and they continue to create a lot of IP, but they have no ability to unlock that, and how we can work with them to help them to unlock their IPs. And I would leave you with the thought that fundamentally, I think India has a great story. It would only depend on how we react on this particular time collectively as an industry. If we are able to react in the right sense and we have the right responses to things happening around us, there is an opportunity for us to take rather advantage on the situation which is being put to us. And also, I think collectively as an industry and License India and Bradford, we will put a lot of focus on what I call made in India brands. So that's our space which we would like to invest on. I feel that India should be ready to export some of the brands to the world through licensing, and that's my own personal focus area. So this is a little bit from my side. I think there are a lot of valuable panelists which are coming in. You should take this as an opportunity to ask as many questions. So you have a Q&A box. Keep asking questions. I'm also available anytime you want to reach me on LinkedIn. So I'm available for answering your questions or any other questions you have, generally on the licensing or anything which License India or Bradford can help you out. So once again, thank you for joining in. This is a 4.5 session, but good part is you're sitting at home. You can enjoy your coffee, tea, whatever you are, and keep listening to the content. There's a lot of interesting content coming in. So thank you very much from my side. Isha, if you're there, you can.
Thank you, Gaurav sir, for an amazing session. Let's move on to the Q&A section. Can we have the audio from Abhishek Kumar, please? Sir, Abhishek Kumar's question is that Ludo King is an Indian brand, and this can be the next Candy Crush when it comes to brand licensing. An Indian brand for global consumer. What's your take on this?
Absolutely, I said that. Everybody is talking about the brand, and everybody is talking about what has been created, and I think the speed of unlocking and speed of taking it to market would depend on how you utilize this time. In the time we get popularity is very quick to achieve, but how do we respond to that, and how we quickly and this is why most of the licensing programs in India were not able to be successfully able to do because we had our reach to market was took a lot of time. So if this has been picked up, everybody's talking about the brand and everybody is using Ludo King and things are happening. So this is a time you need to do and use that, and Bradford would love to talk to you, and if anything we can do together, I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Can we pass the audio to Mr. Vijay? So Vijay's question is how can we make the house brands famous in India, especially in leather industry and SLG?
How you can want to make a brand famous? Brands are always. How do you want to create more distribution can be a question, because if you are a famous brand, then only you can license actually. But yeah, so distribution is critical, and it depends on what kind of SKU is using and so on and so forth. And I think conventional ways of distribution, creating exclusive stores and all that would rest for some time. I think the best would be digital channels, and digital channel can be any e-commerce companies, and e-commerce companies are very proactive in licensing. They are all are looking at newer ideas, and I think India is still very at least in leather goods very independent market. We hardly have brands, and I think we have only 3 or 4, so to say, credible Indian brands which are available, and the market is absolutely available. So there is a big opportunity in the leather goods. I will tell you, there is a licensee in India which has a global license for cross for leather goods. So they not only do cross for India. India is very little market for them, but actually they do it globally, especially travel retail. So all the airlines, when you go there, you will find cross products. Actually, they're all produced by a licensee based out of Calcutta and then distributed across markets.
Now, can we have the audio from Mr. Paul? So the question is, what is unlocking value of brands?
Unlocking value of brands, as I said, unlocking is actually about what you can extend on that brand. What is the DNA of the brand? What it stands for? For example, we do a brand called JCB, which is Earth Movers. They are, stands for, obviously they are known in the construction industry, but they are very robust machines. They stand for durability. They stand for, so we really find the DNA of the brand, and then categories which would fit them would be natural extension. So maybe a battery can be a natural extension. Maybe tires can be natural extension. So these are how you extend the brands. We are discussing on a very interesting brand called Old Monk. It's a classic, great brand. And if you extend that, what we would extend, what it stays for, which target group really reflects on that brand. And so we work a lot on doing it, and it's about deeper study on the brand and the consumer group, and also some kind of a deep dive in their DNA, and then extend that to relevant categories. Anytime you want to go outside relevant categories, and a lot of times you just, because the popularity of brand, try to get categories which makes no sense, it's normally a disaster. So licensing best works if you really stay focused, pick up 3 or 4 categories which really are absolutely relevant for you, and maximize that. Any other question, Isha, for me, or we move to the next?
Yes, sir. One question is from Vishwa Mohan. How do you see the Indian brands in K-12 education space performing?
Indian brands in K-12 education. Indian brands for K-12 education school consumption, which is back to school, or if that question is relevant to that, I think, yeah, that's a very big market. That's always been one of the largest markets for consumption. This year would be tough because we are not consuming so much. So I feel that a lot of merchandising which would be prepared to be offloaded in period when the schools open or before the schools open and things like that. So I feel that there would be a big pain and pressure on people. So while kids would go to school and they would still need newer backpacks and newer water bottles and a lot of other things, I think some people need to do some innovation, and I'm very sure the e-commerce would start opening up and some consumption would work there. So if people produced that, or I think so, a lot of this year would have a lot of pressure on people to move their current merchandise and how they liquidate that. That would be a big challenge for at least for this season, I think. But in times to come, that's a very, very big market. Again, our distribution is weak. Our product, our capabilities to bring product on the shelf is extremely poor. Even if you ask now, if my girls both, whenever I go to London, or I think they know stores in London and they know stores in other parts of the world, and they tell me exactly which store you need to go and buy what needs to be done. But because they don't find those stores here, they have no affiliation on international market. They have affiliation on the product or the brand. Because those are not available here, so they would obviously remember what they have. So we have, again, the problem is in distribution. So unless and until we fix that problem and we have a very clear availability for a consumer where to produce and get these products, I think otherwise India can be one of the biggest, if answering your question, K-12 merchandise market in the world.
Thank you, Gaurav sir, for an amazing session. The rest of the questions will be answered